The first step in that process, assuming that we have assets which are owned in some sort of a trust structure, is to identify what sort of trust is it that we're dealing with. So as I touched on, are we dealing with a discretionary trust? Is it a unit trust? Is it a hybrid trust? Discretionary trusts and unit trusts are usually relatively easy to identify. The discretionary trust will have a range of beneficiaries, but no fixed entitlement to any income or capital from the trust, and therefore the rights that that beneficiary has against the trustee are limited to the right to be considered for distributions from time to time, and the right to ensure that the trustee fulfills their obligations as a trustee and carries out their fiduciary duties. So a discretionary trust, the fundamental nature is that the beneficiaries only have a right to be considered, not an actual right to the trust assets. If you contrast that with a unit trust will usually have beneficiaries with units or fixed percentages, which entitle them to a determinable amount of the trust income and capital. And therefore a unit trust will be treated quite differently from a bankruptcy perspective and a Family Law Act perspective in the event something goes wrong for one of the individual unit holders. The hybrid trust is a bit of an interesting one, and you could talk to 10 different lawyers and probably get 10 different definitions of what a hybrid trust is. This is a structure that's been evolving a lot over the last 10 to 15 years, and there are lots of different variations out here which each have slightly different provisions or quirks which make them operate the way they operate. In a really general sense, I'd say that a hybrid trust is a trust which has some discretionary entitlements and some fixed entitlements. And if I use one example for a type of trust that was particularly common primarily in the lead up to the GFC, although we have seen some more recently as well, that hybrid trust structure is one, if we use that negative gearing trust as an example, where we have an individual unit holder who goes out and borrows funds to buy units in the trust, and those units impose a fixed entitlement to the income from the trust. And the thinking behind these hybrid trusts was that because the individual had borrowed to acquire an income-producing asset, being the units, they could therefore claim a tax deduction for their interest on the borrowings. But that trustee would then have a separate provision which said any capital that may be accumulated by the trust, including any capital gain on an underlying asset, could be distributed at the trustee's discretion to a wide range of beneficiaries. So we have that merger where we have some discretionary entitlements in relation to capital and some fixed entitlements in relation to income.